Hello, this is for Capricorn now. We're this is Susan back with part who knows how many of this Mars retrograde in Leo video. I couldn't do one video, and we've got a few technical issues going on here, including monkeys going completely wild on my roof. I'm hoping that they're gone now. They seem to have moved on. Who knows what the distraction will be here for Capricorn, hopefully none. But I want to speak in depth around this retrograde Mars in Leo. Please go back to the previous video. Maybe it's not the exact previous videos, 2 videos again, where I did the Aries through to Virgo segment, and that you'll find uploaded on the same day as this one. And that is with about a 25-minute introduction around the bigger meaning of this energy for this moment, especially this Mars retrograde. But I'm going to speak to you, Capricorn, whether it's Sun, Moon, or Rising in Capricorn, around the importance of this for you, for your sign. I always include what the Sun, Moon, and Rising means in the description box below all videos, and so you'll find that there, and you'll also find that in the introduction that I did from the other video. So very important to listen for all 3 if you are aware of your Sun, Moon, and Rising sign. So here we have Mars, which is, by the way, your exaltation ruler. So Mars is in your 8th house, retrograding towards your 7th house, where it's going to enter on the 6th of January. And this is from the 6th of December to the 6th of January. Mars is now retrograding through the first 6 degrees of Leo. And that's how far it got through November, basically, because it entered into your 8th house the 4th of November. And it took a month just to get to 6 degrees. So Mars is very, very slow around the times that it retrogrades, which is only every 2 years. It's a very rare retrograde. But the retrograde is very long because Mars appears to move very, very slowly in the sky. This retrograde is about reintegrating something of your inner experience of life. It's got a lot to do with your maybe buried fears or hidden issues from family, perhaps things that you have acquired from family. Mars rules your 4th house of home, family, and lineage, and it also rules your 11th house of your friends and your vision for your future, your hopes and dreams, the house of gains as well. With Mars going through the 8th house, where we share resources with other people, it's not such an easy thing to overcome things that might have to do with contentions around contracts or issues around hereditary gifts or inheritances, or could be money coming in through clients and so on. There may be some haggling that needs to be done. In fact, it's very strongly likely. And it can also be that there's some need for being very serious or very firm around these things. So Mars works really well. As I said, it's your exaltation ruler, although your natural ruler is Saturn, which is in the 3rd house, and I'll speak to that in a moment. We can also look to the exaltation ruler to see how this is actually working for you. And it's very helpful to follow Mars as a Capricorn, because it really gives you another element of what's important in your life at any given time. So here we're looking at a long extended period of time where relationships and issues to do with how you share things in relationships of contractual nature or intimate nature, or even in terms of family, acquiring things from family, for example, or from another source that's not directly income related. All of those things are going to require a lot of effort and time. Mars is also in opposition to Venus and Pluto, which have moved into your 2nd house. Now, Pluto's been there since November, the 19th of November. Venus moved in there only just the following day after Mars went retrograde, which was on the 6th of December. So please go again. I can't repeat everything all the time, so please go back to the video where I do this introduction of what the timings are and the movement of Mars in and out of Leo. And you'll also find another video that I uploaded on the 3rd of December, which is also a very thorough overview of the energy of the beginning of December, which is quite significant, and lots more than just Mars that we're looking at there. but in this opposition here with Venus and now Pluto in your second house of money opposing Mars in your eighth house, there's something here that we can see is probably likely to stimulate your need to clarify your finances, to work towards your security. This is certainly what the North Node has been focusing your attention on, going through the fourth house. Certainly what Mars representing in the eighth house, and also trining that North Node that it rules, because Mars rules your fourth house as well as your 11th house. So there's something here that you're grappling with, this issue of security. What do I need? How do I need to organize myself? Where do I feel safe and secure? This can be a psychological sense, or this can be a physical sense of where do I feel safe and secure? How do I settle in this moment in time? And with whom? Because Mars is going to be showing you this is something to do with friends. The house of friendship is the 11th house ruled by Mars. And also Mars going through the 7th house of relationships in general, and especially big partnerships with your life partner, business partners, and so on. Jupiter is in your 6th house of contracts and everyday work and business and work environment. It might have something to do with your role as a boss or employee, or the people that work for you, the way that you have to organize your time. And this can also be something to do with health. Now, this would not be surprising also, given that the 8th house and 2nd house axis also do refer to health issues, most especially mental health and overall well-being, just overall health. This is something that you might find is an important secret or an important, let's say, revelation that might be something revealed from your own unconscious process or from family patterns that you're starting to become aware of. And this can be all the more so because we've had a Cazimi, Mercury in the heart of the Sun, earlier this week, just before the Mars retrograde, and that's in opposition to Jupiter in your 6th house of health, and how you take care of yourself and how you organize your time and the things, the stuff that you have to do, all the drudgery and all the things that you have to do throughout the day, just to keep yourself well and stable. Now there's an opposition going here, but it's relatively favorable in the sense that Mercury rules that Jupiter. Mercury rules your 6th house, Gemini, and Jupiter rules the Mercury. This is called a mutual exchange, where they help each other out. Even in an opposition, they're looking at each other but saying, yeah, you look like you're in a familiar place. I can help you navigate this. Now, this is for Capricorn is issues that might have to do with overgiving or not being able to be clear what is yours and what is not yours. This can be something to do with a feeling of martyring, being martyred, or a sense of always having to be the one that picks up the slack. This is a famous issue with Capricorn. It's one of the life stories or the life lessons for Capricorn, is to recognize where responsibility lies. And there's a kind of a baked-in natal feeling of guilt often for Capricorns, where they're not quite sure why, but they just feel like they should be responsible for everything going on around them. And it's an important moment that you can start to question this. And so this axis of, am I martyring myself? Am I sacrificing myself for something that actually isn't relevant to me or is not my problem? This is where Mars can be really helpful to clarify what is my problem, what is not my problem. Mars in the 8th, what do I share with others? That's not just financial, but what kind of, who does the dishes? Who's taking care of the dog? All of these different things. That's also the 8th house meaning of what you share with others. And what about their opinions? Do you care about other people's opinions? Is that something that's helping or not helping you? We see that there's a T-square here with Saturn, also ruled by Jupiter. So Jupiter is squaring Saturn all through the month of December, and that square becomes exact on the 24th and 25th of December. It's actually going to be many days before and after that. So we're seeing that the Jupiter square is already in orb. So we're giving it a 3-degree orb here. The dynamic here of Saturn moving forward finally after a long retrograde, and Saturn is now moving into the solution, let's say, to the issue that developed from June onwards through this summer, or let's say the middle of 2024. And into November, we're now seeing a clarity and an understanding and a deeper sense of purpose. Now, Jupiter is the one that's saying, well, hang on just a minute, because I haven't worked out the details yet. Jupiter in Gemini really likes to understand the ins and outs of things, and especially in the 6th house, I need to understand the details of how is this going to look? What contracts do I need to sign? What do I need? How do I need to engage for any of this to happen? Contracts are very much 3rd house, 6th house kinds of things. And if you are asked to sign a contract, if there is something that requires your attention, you might want to wait until Mars has moved into your 7th house and that will be the 6th of January. And at the very least, until Mercury is stationing direct, and even perhaps after a couple of days of moving direct from the 15th of December. And if you're really not in a hurry, you could wait also until Jupiter is moving direct, and that's from the 4th of February. So especially if you need to sign something that will engage you around employment, it would be a very good idea to take time and read, and be sure that this is the thing that you want in a contract, or this is the agreement that you want, this is the way you want to share resources, this is the way you want to be supported by somebody, and so on. So Saturn is very helpful in this sense, slowing things down and saying, did you read the fine print? Did you understand what was being told? Did you really think this through? Saturn in the 3rd house makes you deliberate. It makes you think more clearly, makes you a little more serious about what needs to be taken care of. The other aspect of this moment in time is that Neptune is now direct at 27 degrees of Pisces. It's no longer going to come back to this place. It's going to move forward from this point on, and by the 30th of March, it's going to move into your 4th house. And it will be followed by Saturn, which in June is moving into your 4th house, at the very end of May, in fact. And also with the North Node moving from the 4th into the 3rd, it's going to collide at the end of January, beginning of February, with Neptune, right at the end of your 3rd house. So what we're looking at now, at the beginning of December, what you've understood about this moment in time and the things that you're contemplating over the next month into early January, you're going to be able to apply as things shift for you, moving Saturn, moving Neptune, moving the North Node, and changing this sense of what is the choice that I need to make? What is the thing that I need to know before I make this choice? Neptune moving direct is probably going to give you a little more clarity around something that had been confusing, or that had been not necessarily what you wanted to see. Perhaps there was a feeling of, wow, is it really that? Is it going to be this is the way it's all going to work out? And then you start to realize that actually, as these things are moving, the clarity starts to emerge, and you start to feel like, okay, I get now what's going on here, and I know how to go forward with this. And Neptune can bring from that clarity, from the point of view of having integrated something that may have been at one time confusing, you become much more inspired, and you have a great sense of creativity. It's not true that Capricorn is not creative. It's that Capricorn tends to deliberate more about creativity. And certainly Venus ruling your 5th house of creativity with Pluto, pardon me, is an opportunity for you to practice your creativity and to really dig deep into how that expresses itself through your values, through your means, your talents, your gifts, because Saturn in the 3rd also brings that out. Neptune in the 3rd also can bring that out, brings out a lot of creative gifts and talents. And so maybe the solution, although it seems like a mundane problem, seems like a problem that might be sort of an everyday pedestrian kind of thing, the solution is requiring your deeper creativity. At the very least, your values, and becoming clear about your values. So Pluto in your 2nd house is going to transform your relationship to money one way or another. It doesn't necessarily make you rich. It may do. It depends on your natal chart. But Pluto in the 2nd house will have you focus a lot of your time and attention on your wealth and money and those aspects of what your holdings are, let's say. So all of this, as we go through the month of December and into January, go dig deep into any blocks, any family patterns, anything that might frighten you, anything that makes you worried about your own security, anything that makes you feel like you can't you can't trust somebody, you can't settle with somebody, you can't be sure of what it is that you're deciding or what is being presented to you. Take your time. You've got a good 4 weeks now with Mars retrograding through this point in the chart until the 6th of January. It will come back into this point in your chart on the 18th of April, and for the rest of April it's going to clear this point, and into May then it starts to move in a fresh direction, where that from May and into the middle of June, that becomes where you're going with all of this. So the deeper you can dig, the better will be the result come the early months of April, May and June. I think that's all we need to cover for you, Capricorn. I think we've said it all. Do please listen to the introduction, which is in the video, which is describing Mars retrograding in Leo for Aries through to Virgo. So sorry to have to send you to another video. I'm working a bit on a shoestring here because I'm in the middle of a wilderness area in Kerala. We don't have a whole lot of means. So this is, everything's being chopped up in little pieces, which I prefer not to do, but okay, there we are. Capricorn, make the most of this, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, so here we are now with Aquarius, Sun, Moon, or Rising. And this is where we find Mars in your 7th house of relationships. Now you're going to have Mars here again in April, May, and June from the 18th of April. But for the moment, you've had Mars here since the 4th of November. It got to this sort of 6-degree point, and now it's retrograding, and it's going to take another month for it to clear the 6 degrees back into your 6th house. We'll talk about the 6th house transit, where Mars goes back into Cancer later in December. I'll come back with another video because there's just so much to say that I want to keep them as a separate thing. But more important is that this is in an opposition to the newly arrived Venus and recently arrived Pluto in your 1st house. And that's the first from the Sun, first from the Moon, or your ascendant. So that does still apply even if you have a Sun or Moon in Aquarius. Derived houses can be done from any planet in the chart, but especially the personal ones, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. And so that means that we're counting 7 houses from anything in Aquarius where we find Mars. So that Mars is creating an opposition, and that means that there's more energy, there's something happening in this house of relationship around issues to do with relationships. Now this can be something to do with business. It might have something to do with the connections that you have, business connections or colleagues or and partners, business partners, for example. It can also be something to do with clients. But most people will find that that's for their very important relationship energies, whether that's their life partner or very best friends or the people that they spend the most time with. The quality of relationships is being affected by this Mars going through the 7th. It might be that you're finding that there's more energy coming from other people, and that energy coming from other people is spicing things up, or it can also be felt as confrontational, and that depends on your natal chart. Mars rules your 10th house of your career, so this is quite important because these planets, as we're looking at them, are in the what we call angular houses. The 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th houses are angular, and those are like the backbone of your chart. And so we're looking at something that is structural to your life. It's yourself, it's the roots and your foundation in life, both physical, physiological, as well as the psychological or emotional roots. And then the 7th is your connections with people, your relationships. And then the 10th is what you do with all of that, how you manifest that out in the world. Now Mars rules your 10th house as well as the 3rd house. Mars ruling your career house or your house of vocation or social status from the 7th shows that there's some new activity that is coming through relationship that's going to show up in the public eye, let's say. And when I say public eye, it's not about being famous. It's about how people outside the house see what you do or with whom you do it. For example, social status represents being married or not being married. Or you're the lady who sells the stuff, those kinds of things. As people acknowledge that's the person who does this, or that's how you show up in the world outside. Now at the same time, we've got this opposition from the newly arrived Pluto and recently arrived Venus, who arrived into your 1st house at the same time that Mars stationed retrograde. This opposition can create some real inspiration, or it can create some real tension, Venus in opposition to Mars can be quite feisty. It can be sexually attractive as well. There can be, if there's a new relationship, if there's something budding, that can actually be quite spicy, especially as you do have Jupiter in your 5th house. So that is about love. It is about relationships, and that can be something that's generating a new love interest, or that's already been happening, and now this is something that's really starting to take off. But with Mars retrograding, there's a questioning around all of this. There's a questioning around relationships. I'm reviewing who I'm in relationship with, reviewing the choices that I'm making in the area of relationships. Now, you also are one of the signs that has the triad here, the fire trine, in the Kama houses, the houses of pleasure. So we have the 3rd, 7th, and 11th houses full at this point. We've got the North Node, very important, prominent in your 3rd house, in a trine to Mars, which is ruling it. So Mars, as it's trining the North Node, also rules it from your 7th house, that angular house, very important, very impactful. Something new, a new sense of purpose or idea around what are my aims, whether they be around relationships or what are my aims in terms of my desires overall. So the Kama houses, 3, 7, 11, are about our desires. What do we want out of life? Especially since Mars also rules your 10th house of career, vocation, and social status. That's also part of your desire nature. We're seeing Mars representing the houses that it rules. The 3rd house, which Mars also rules, represents how you communicate, how you take action, the motivation that you have, any sense of competitiveness or drive. Now, especially as Jupiter is also in the 5th house, which is another kind of competitive house in a way, especially to do with competition around sports or competition around how you engage in friendly play, for example. This is maybe part of the moment where you're starting to feel, okay, there's a pressure on. So-and-so has this job and I don't have it. Or so-and-so is married and I'm not married. And so you're maybe starting to feel this pressure building around certain things that you might personally be struggling with in terms of where you feel adequate or inadequate based on how you might feel motivated or driven or competitive around these different desires. Now, the desires themselves are worthy of your consideration. You need to reflect on whether they are old, maybe they're outdated, they're no longer relevant to you, or maybe there's something that are to be questioned in this moment. Is this really what I want? Those are the desires I've always said I wanted, but are they still the thing that I want? And there's a little bit of help with this because we've got the Sun and Mercury together. So now we're advancing quite far now through the couple of days following this Mars retrograde. Please, by the way, watch the introductory video that I did on, I posted it just before these now 3 videos that I'm doing to try and upload all the signs from India. It's been a little bit awkward. There's 2 basic overviews. The first one was posted on the 3rd of December, and the second one is the introduction to the video, which is between the signs from Aries through to Virgo. So the first 25 minutes of that video has a really in-depth look at Mars in Leo and the other things that it represents here. So I'm not dwelling on those things because I've already said them. So please do backtrack and watch that, and I'll link that in the comments below this video. So Mars is not the only part of this story. The North Node is not the only part of this story, but we also have this opposition. The Sun and Mercury, just the days prior to this retrograde, have been in Cazimi, which means that Mercury goes into the heart of the Sun. And that has pulled it into an opposition at the same time with Jupiter. And this lasts for a couple of days, the better part of a week, really, around the first 10 days of December. And that opposition from Jupiter to Mercury is very important because Jupiter rules the Sun and Mercury while it's in Sagittarius, and Mercury rules Jupiter while it's in your 5th house in Gemini. So Mercury is the ruler of your 5th normally, and so there's a mutual connection here, mutual exchange that allows for a sharing of ideas, inspiration, a sense of purpose, because now we've got the Sun and Mercury very prominently in your 11th house of the future, and that's where the Mercury retrograde has been since the 25th of November. So basically through November, December, and January, you have Mercury in your 11th house trying to figure out what is this vision, this thing that I hope for in the future, we know that it's changing. Your sense of purpose has been changing for the last year and a half as the South Node has moved through your 9th house since July 2023, and the North Node moves through your 3rd house at the same time, and that 3rd house is representing what your desires are, your aims and your goals and the vision that you have for this moment, the things you want to put your willpower into, the things that you want to challenge yourself with. This can also be something to do with friends, siblings, cousins, expanded family members, extended family like uncles and aunts and so on, because not only is the Sun and Mercury in the house of friends, but also the 3rd house represents that, ruled by Mars in the house of relationships. So we know that for Aquarius at this moment, whatever this new thing is really affecting your relationships, and perhaps it is the result of relationships. So it may be that you've had a new encounter and that has changed your whole vision for your future, or that you are realizing that your vision is changing and therefore the relationships also need to change. With Jupiter in the 5th house, although it's retrograde, there's been a lot of forward planning, looking into how to reach out into life in a more perhaps celebratory way, or in a way that feels much more creative or much more like yourself, maybe more joyful, having a little bit more fun, a little bit more connection perhaps through children or through hobbies and sports. And that's where the competitive stuff around the 5th house comes from, through things that bring you joy. How do I find joy in my life? Now, that opposition between Jupiter, Mercury, and the Sun is also in a T-square with Saturn. Now, Saturn is ruled by Jupiter. I'm going to ignore the Moon because it's not a part of what I'm discussing here, even though you can see that it's there with Saturn. But that's not part of the bigger story. It's just that the Moon has come along at this point to trigger that 7th and 8th of December. Actually, yeah, it would be overnight from the 7th to the 8th. So this square between Jupiter, the Sun, Mercury, and Saturn, which is ruled by Jupiter, is very much about where you're putting your attention with regards to money and values, how you might earn your income, issues around family. This might have to do with more responsibility, family responsibility, might have to do with something around children, how the children need to be taken care of, or issues that have to do with how you are valuing yourself. What is my value? Saturn in the 2nd house can also have you reflecting on your overall sense of what money is worth to you. What is the value of money? What do I do with my belongings? Saturn is very much about legacy, and so is the 10th house. And Mars here in the 7th house might have you thinking about what is the legacy that I'm leaving, whether it be for my children or through my work, through my reputation, through my career. How does that work for me? The other aspect of this is with Pluto and Venus in your 1st, and then Saturn in the 2nd, there may be some issue around health. There may be something that is coming up at this point around your health and the things that you might need to grapple with around your health and well-being, your constitution, the fundamental health. Now that would have to be seen from your natal chart, and otherwise you would know if there's an issue around your health or not. It's not because of this that there's an issue. But of course, both the 11th house and the 2nd house have to do with money, and something to do with and also the Mercury rules your 8th house of other people's resources. So something to do with money, how you earn it, how you spend it, and how you value that is a very important thing. But that also coincides with the relationship question, especially around connections through friends, through groups and associations, whether they be religious or spiritual groups or political groups or just casual friends that you go out for coffee with. That's very much 3rd house and 11th house stuff. If there is something here around siblings or children, then that question will also perhaps be coming through them. So it means that it's not happening in your life, but it's happening in the lives of your children or your brothers, sisters. And you're just grappling with that. You're having to deal with that at this time. So it doesn't necessarily mean that this is about you or your issues. Mars will be going back into your 6th house, which is going to keep you busy from the 6th of January all the way through till the 18th of April. But on the 24th of February, Mars will station direct at 17 degrees of your 6th house, Cancer. And that's going to be another video, because there's going to be a lot more to say about that. But that's going to be something that you're including in this moment in terms of this longer term vision. So definitely have the sense that whatever this relationship issue or the desire issue is, what this new thing, this new aim, motivation, new wish for some new drive or ambition, whatever that is, it's going to change your everyday life. And you want to really factor that in as a long game, because you're a fixed sign. These are fixed signs on the angles. So the first house, your Aquarius house, then we've got Taurus and Leo and Scorpio all on the backbone of your chart. And especially because Mars is ruling that 10th house while it's in the 7th, we know that this is going to have a very serious impact. This retrograde motion in your 7th is going to have a long-term impact on how you show up in the world. This could be, again, a very important connection that you're making through work or through a business engagement or through a love relationship that becomes serious and becomes more long-lasting. Now, if you do stumble upon somebody at this point, or you meet somebody in some circumstances, or a relationship starts to develop a certain seriousness, please take note that with Mars in opposition to Pluto and Venus at this point, especially Pluto going forward for several weeks, actually, and the third time will be, so we're going to have it on the 3rd of January at 1 degree, and then we're going to have another opposition, 26th of April, and that's going to be testing whatever this relationship is about, or this partnership of some kind, business partner or whatever. And so you want to be crystal clear. If there are any red flags, if there's anything that's coming up at this point, you want to take that seriously. Saturn in the 2nd house is saying, get serious about your values. Don't compromise your values. And the Mars in trine to the North Node in the 3rd house is also asking you to be clear in your communication, how you're expressing, how you're connecting with the people around you, and most especially those that are of intimate and utmost importance to you. Now, also shortly after, just hours after Mars stations retrograde, we've got Neptune stationing direct. And it's going to be starting its motion through the rest of Pisces, where it's going to exit on the 30th of March and go into your 3rd house. Before it does that, at the end of January, beginning of February, it's going to conjoin the North Node. So there's a big story here that's building between your 2nd house and your 3rd house, something to do with money and how you spend it, something to do with your values and how you communicate them, something to do with your family and how you connect on the broader level with your family, issues around support. Who's got my back? Is there anybody there? Do I have the support that I need? And this is where Mars will answer the question. Well, no. So out they go. We're no longer doing this. If that person is not the right person for me, Mars going through the 7th house can bring you a certain distance between yourself and another. Or at least let's call it a clarification, a point of clarification. Mars rules your 3rd house. So that can also come with a certain amount of aggression, assertion, sharpness. It doesn't have to. But that's one of the ways that Mars ruling the 3rd house can manifest. So that clarity is coming from certainty. And when you're certain about something, there's no need for anger. It just is that way. And then the truth comes out. It's just what it is. And there's no need to defend or yell or get upset. And if somebody else is doing that, if that's part of this dynamic here, and there is this intensity, then that's where you want to really call in this T-square that's being formed here by Saturn, which is all through December pretty much squaring Jupiter. It's exact on 24th and 25th of December. That is where you want to get your wisdom from. That is where you want to see, can I live with this for a long term? Is this part of my set of values? Good luck with all of this, Aquarius, and I'll see you in the next video. Pisces. You are going to have this Mars in your 6th house of everyday work and health and issues around what you need to do to keep your life going, to keep things humming forward. This is really important to understand in terms of anything that might need your attention around how you establish a rhythm, a routine, whether that be health routines or work routines, how you use your time, how you're working through any kind of niggling health issues. Now with Pluto in opposition to Mars, those things can come up as profoundly karmic. they can come up as things that are where you realize that the issues are coming through a different layer than the physical layer of your being. As I'm here, for example, in this Ayurvedic retreat, we're working on my ancestral layers of family patterns that have undermined my immune system, and that has been a generational thing, many generations of issues that are that keep coming through, and it's just physically manifesting in my case as just no big issue, but just a low-grade feeling of always struggling to stay on top. And here we have this potential for you that to manifest in a similar way. I have a Pisces stellium, that's why I'm mentioning that. I have Pisces sun and a big stellium, and so this is for Pisces, of course, sun, moon, and rising. But when you have Mars in the 6th house, there can be issues that actually flare up initially. They are unpleasant, or they're showing you how the potential is there for that to happen. But if you're on top of it, it doesn't have to go very far. And the Mars gives you the determination to get stuff done. It's either find the solution or change the program, sort the thing out, and recognize what needs to be different. Mars rules your house of your values, your money, your income. So this can also have an impact on the way you earn money or the way that you feel about money, how you manage your money, for example. Mars also rules your 9th house, which is your higher wisdom, your higher knowledge. It's your, you could call it the road to God. It's your sense of what you have faith in. But it also represents the father. It represents issues of your sense of purpose, your higher direction, or your sense of why you're here. What's your life all about? And so this energy is also coming into that Mars in the 6th house. The values, the money, why am I here? What do I do? Who am I anyway? And that energy is coming through. It's almost like it's being refracted through this Mars that is now retrograde in your 6th house. Whatever that has been up until this point, especially through November, is starting to shift as of the 6th of December. And until the 6th of January, when Mars then moves back into your 5th house, which will help you to find a sense of your creative self-expression. Also, your maybe finding your creative heart, finding that energy that allows you to really dig deep into creative ideas, maybe connections with children, or something that needs to be done on their behalf or through them, or that they are dealing with issues that you need to contend with as well for them. Or there may be issues around having children, if that's your stage of life where you're deciding, do I want children, do I not want children, how are we going to do this? Maybe there's some issues in terms of getting pregnant, or an issue during pregnancy or around childbirth, and Mars can sometimes throw up some monkey wrenches there. But these are things that can be worked through with the heightened awareness that you have through Saturn in your 1st house. Being more serious about yourself, being more serious about your health. Your ruler is in your 4th house of what makes you feel secure, what makes you feel happy. It's retrograde now, so there may be a feeling of instability, insecurity, and that's not going to really change until Jupiter starts to move forward again as of the 4th of February. But right at the moment of this Mars retrograde, Jupiter is in opposition to the Sun and Mercury, which just a couple of days before were in Cazimi. And that means that Mercury was in the heart of the Sun. Please go back to the beginning of this very now long sequence of videos that I'm doing around Mars retrograde in Leo. There was an introduction that I posted first on the 3rd of December. I did a second introduction with some more details around the Mars retrograde in Leo, as well as the Neptune that is stationing direct in your sign, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And that is the first 25 minutes of the video, which is about Mars retrograding in Leo from Aries through to Virgo. So please go back and watch that, because it contains some really valuable, useful, I think, information overall. And so here what we have is this really interesting mutual reception between your ruler, Jupiter, from the 4th into the 10th, where Mercury is retrograde until the 15th of December. As I mentioned, Jupiter is retrograde until the 4th of February. There's information being exchanged here. What do I need to feel secure? What do I need just to create happiness in my life? What do I need to feel abundant? And Mercury, both Mercury and Jupiter being retrograde, is getting a kind of a recharge, new ideas, new inspiration based on this opposition through Jupiter. It's inspired, it's very out there, it sees potential, and yet it's squared by Saturn. So what does Saturn want? It doesn't want this to not happen. It doesn't want your vision to not transpire. It doesn't want things to not work out. It wants things to be lasting. It wants things to be serious. Take it seriously. Do something that's going to create something that will have longevity, that will have durability, that will be serious. This is looking forward. Let's imagine if this is a health issue, which for Saturn going through the first house or through the sun, through the moon, is quite typical, that your health is becoming a priority so that you can see forward into a longer future. Insofar as we have any control over that, we have control over how we take care of our day-to-day habits and rhythms and what we do every day to stay well. And that's part of this whole big picture. So Mars retrograding is on its own. It's not enough to describe what's going on here. It's part of a bigger story that for Pisces is very strongly associated with how do I get the mojo to keep going in the direction that I want to go. Remember, Mars rules your 9th house. Why am I here? What's my purpose? Well, I better shape myself up. I better change my schedule. I'd better be sure how I work in my job. Is this a good job for me? And am I able to work in a way that brings me joy? Or am I able to work in a way that doesn't exhaust me? Am I able to work in a way that brings me a sense of happiness? And it's not about being at ease and having no difficulties, but rather just an overall sense of well-being. And this you want to see as a long-term result of the transit of Saturn through your first and the transit of Mars through your sixth. This is where we find this sense of long-term well-being. When Mars moves back on the 6th of January into your 5th house, it's going to trine your 1st house and trine the 9th house that it's ruling. And that will bring even more flow. It will become much more like, yeah, okay, I'm starting to really get this now, really understanding. In the meantime, though, we do have this opposition from Mars to Pluto and Mars to Venus. Venus and Pluto together in your 12th house. There's a lot of maybe opening of perspective, perhaps around your consciousness or around a sense of what is your family, maybe ancestral connections, or maybe spiritual ancestors, or maybe your spiritual experience, spiritual life, or maybe your unconscious experience. We do have Jupiter in the 4th house of psychology and your psychological well-being, which is quite helpful, although it's retrograde, so there may be a sense of doubt. When your ruler is retrograde, there can be a feeling of just kind of pulling back and not being entirely sure, knowing that overall it'll be fine, but still not sure how to navigate that. Give it a few weeks and it'll be better. And then, of course, Venus herself is trining the South Node in the 8th house, where that has been traveling from July 2023. So the Venus trine, the South Node that she's ruling, is kind of like a last moment where you recognize, okay, this is the thing I'm willing now to let go of. This is what I have to do differently in terms of relationship or in terms of expectations of what others will bring me before the North Node goes through the 1st house and says, I need to be different. I'm showing up differently now. I'm taking responsibility. I'm doing something new and different in my life. This is all part of this bigger dynamic. Mars in the 6th house is literally every single day, every moment of every day. How are you taking action? What are you doing? And is that working for you? It's contributing to the trine to the North Node that it rules, just as Venus is trining the South Node that she rules. So there's a really deep message here. And this energy over time is something that's giving us a spiritual lesson. It's kind of a wonky mystic rectangle. It's not exact because Mars is a little bit too far away and Venus has not yet approached the exact opposition to Mars. But let's say in a couple of days after, let's say by the 10th, 11th, 12th of December, there will be actually this spiritual connection between these nodes and between Venus, Pluto, and Mars, and that you will have access to an understanding of a deeper or maybe a more spiritual purpose to your life, to your sensitivities. This can be something to do with relationship. There can be connections or disconnections in relationships, depending. That would require me seeing your chart. But there can be also sexual tensions. But because Venus is in the 12th house, there may be something here, and because Mars is retrograding, there may be something here that's not quite right. It's not the right time. It's not an appropriate thing, or that the person is too far away. Something's not quite panning out. So the enticement might be there, the desire might be there, but it may not be the right thing to do. So this is especially an important question to ask when Mars is opposing Pluto, is what is the right thing to do? Mars is in Leo. Please go back again and listen to that introductory session of the video, which I will link below. And that will highlight what is the right thing to do, how to act with integrity, but not just integrity to the world outside, but with regards to myself, how do I act with integrity? How do I act in alignment with myself? And especially as Mars refers back to that 9th house that it's ruling, how do I act with a vision for why I'm here? So is what I'm doing in a day-to-day environment actually supporting the thing that I think I want to do in my life, or the reason I think I'm here? So very, very special time for Pisces. We also have Neptune, the modern ruler of Pisces, in this direct motion. It's going to be finishing off its journey in Pisces by the 30th of March, and it will be moving into your 2nd house. That's going to be your house of values, money. We're going to talk about that in another video. I did cover that as well in the annual videos that you can still purchase on my website. North Node is not going to be ruled by Mars any longer. It's going to start to be ruled by Jupiter as of the 10th of January. So just after Mars moves into your 5th and creates a trine to your 1st house and a trine to the 9th house, the North Node is going to move into your 1st house and conjoin Neptune. And that's going to be a very inspiring time, something incredibly unique, especially for Pisces, that will show you a vision or a new path, because Venus will also be in your 1st house, in your sign, and Venus is exalted in Pisces. So you'll end up with Venus, Neptune, and even the Moon, along with the North Node, by the last day of January, the 1st day of February, and a couple of days on either side. So that will be a moment of reckoning, something that you will understand profoundly. That can be a genuine moment of awakening, or can be the beginning of something that takes you on a path that says, okay, this is what I want out of my life. This is how I see myself in my life. So start right now in December with this Mars. What do I need to change in my everyday life to get closer to this place that will come to me through end of January, beginning of February, and especially with the North Node moving through the 2nd house, having digested what I really feel is important over the last year and a half, what I really understand to be my red line. What is the thing that I will not do? What is the thing that I will absolutely do? And how will I manifest that in my life? So Pisces, this is a wonderful opportunity. I do hope you can make the most of this, and that we'll see each other again for Mars going into Cancer, trining your sign, trining the 9th house. Very favorable, very helpful energy for you coming up at the beginning of January. I'll be doing a video about that towards the end of December. So I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you again soon.